Hey there, I'm Sean from ARRI, and this is how to build your Alexa 35 production set. So as you can see, the Alexa 35 is a really small and lightweight camera body, but we've got a heap of accessories that you can attach really to nearly every side of this camera to make it more usable for all sorts of different types of production. The first thing I would be doing if I was building this set is just to quickly take off the Wi-Fi antennas. So these just unscrew with your fingertips, and they're really short, stocky, hard and firm antennas, which is good because you could probably rest the whole camera body upside down on them, but it's safer to take them off. And then let's make sure that the ECS antenna is pointing down so that we can turn the camera body upside down. Now the first accessory to go onto the Alexa 35 is the BUD1. This is the Balance Utility Dovetail, and it basically forms the backbone of all of the base plates that you would use with this camera. It's something that we recommend you leave attached to the camera at all times, because from this point there are a bunch of quick release plates that you can slide in and out. So 5 screws to attach this to the Alexa 35. We've got 4 at the front, kind of a similar mounting pattern to the Alexa Mini and the Mini LF, and then the new one is the one at the back. So I would get them all started and then go around and tighten them up at the end. You don't need to really crank onto these, they will grip really nicely. Please don't over tighten the screws if you can avoid it. And the nice thing with these accessories is that you really only need one tool, which is the 3mm hex key that you get with every Alexa 35. So now that we have the BUD1 on there, I'm going to put the camera the right way up again. I'll put on the little Wi-Fi antennas, and then we'll start with the top plate. So the top plate for the production set is the LMS4. So this is the low mode support, number 4, after all the other ones we've had for previous cameras, and it is basically the top plate for the production set. So this uses those 4 screws. Now that is the same hole pattern on the bottom. So we just tighten these up nicely like so. Now the LMS4 has a heap of mounting accessory points. We have 3/8 inch, 1/4 inch, and M4 spaced holes. So at this point, if you had a bracket, like say the RMB7 that comes with your kit, you could choose to put that on the side over here and run a rod out the back, or at the front for like a really lightweight viewfinder mounting option. There are plenty of options with that M4 spaced holes. So once we have the top plate on, the LMS4, you can then choose to have the TEB1. So this is the top extension bracket. And this is a bit of a funky design. You can see the screws enter at an angle into the top plate here. So we put that over and then push forward with the TEB. And then there are these screw holes here, 2 on the side, and again, 1 at the back. Now this plate gives you obviously a lot more accessory mounting options. And you might be wondering what these funny little silver screw heads are here. Well, you can see the channel that runs through the top plate here for lightweight 15mm rods, and these stoppers basically prevent you from running the 15mm rods all the way through and then hitting the Wi-Fi antenna. So if you do want to run long rods in the camera and then maybe hang a battery plate or something like that, just make sure that you take off the Wi-Fi antennas and then remove the little stopper screws. But otherwise you can leave them mounted in there, they won't go anywhere. All right. Top handles. So the new CCH5, so this is our full length camera top handle. It is a center camera handle, which is what CCH stands for, and the 5th generation one. So this has a really nice little quick release mechanism where there's these 2 little cone pieces, which you might be able to see here. So these cones slot into the silver receivers that are at the front of the LMS4, and then the whole thing only secures with 1 screw. Now, it's a pretty cool design. You'll notice that there's a little slope here under the screw. So when I'm tightening this up, which I only need to use my fingers for, it's pushing down, but it's also pulling the whole handle back. So it's kind of sitting under tension, and then it's really solid, which I think is really cool. So the new top handle is longer than top handles we've had before. It has a heap of accessory mounting holes, again, 3/8 inch, 1/4 inch, and M4s. And where possible, we've tried to kind of group those screw hole types together on the handle. There's also space under the top handle where you can have a gimbal mounting plate. We have an adjustable top plate for the Movi as well, so that can be left screwed into the LMS4 so that you can rip the whole lot off, very quickly change into a gimbal if you like, or any other type of rigging mode. The next thing to look at is the viewfinder mounting bracket. So that probably comes in a packet for you already assembled, but I've pulled these two off here because we have the square accessory sleeve and the actual viewfinder mounting bracket itself. Now, the square accessory sleeve is what we use to put the viewfinder mounting bracket on the top handle. And I would normally mount it at the front here. That's kind of where it's designed to go, but you could also put it at the back or on the top, or actually anywhere where you might have a 20mm pair or 20mm space pair of M4 holes. So that just screws on at the front. Now, there are 4 positions that you can put the screws in. So if you wanted to, you could also flip this up if you needed extra height out of the viewfinder mounting bracket, or you could drop it a bit lower or change the screws over to the bottom holes, whatever you like. And I think it's quite nice as well that with this bracket, you don't lose access to the 3/8 inch accessory hole that would be in the front of the top handle. So if, we normally see ACs running a small Noga arm out of there with a focus bug on the front, for instance, you can still do that because we don't lose that accessory hole. So now, on the viewfinder mounting bracket, there is a stopper at the end, which you just need fingers to undo, and then you can slide the whole viewfinder mounting bracket in here. Now, if you've used an Alexa before with one of the standard viewfinder mounting brackets, you'll notice the big change is that it's now a square tube. So a square tube means that when you undo this clamp to laterally adjust the viewfinder position, it no longer falls down, which is quite good. An amazing invention, a square, in some cases better than a cylinder. So now the viewfinder mounting bracket 5, we have one screw here which undoes 2 hinge points or loosens the clamp because this is a friction-based system. So now I have this axis of rotation here and I have this axis of rotation, which means that in combination I have a huge amount of adjustability as to where I can place my viewfinder. It's kind of like having a medium viewfinder extension that's built into the viewfinder bracket, which is pretty cool. And then only one screw here to lock. And this will progressively tighten as you tighten the screw, so you can get it to a point where you can still freely adjust it, but it will stay, where you leave it. Now, let me just pull this back a second. The viewfinder mounting interface is the standard one that we've had on Alexas for a long time. So the viewfinder just slots in. Remember that the clamp lever here is up when it's unlocked. So you want it up to slide in and then push down to clamp. And then this needs a little more friction. And then I can now freely adjust this whole system while it's still in place, which is great. The viewfinder cable would then just plug in. This is the awesome cable that we've had since the Mini LF, where you don't require a keyway. You can just throw the cable in the socket on the camera body, and it can even rotate while it's in there, which is great. It's so much easier to put in than many other viewfinder cables. So that's kind of the top of the camera done. I might talk about the back now. So there's 2 things you could do with the back. This is the interface for our B-mount adapter, which I'm holding here. It's this nice little small plate, and that will slot directly in, and then I can tighten that up with 4 screws. Or you can choose to run the power distribution module. So this is the little thing that gives us an extra 7 accessory power outputs, and there are 3 screws, 2 at the top and 1 at the bottom. Let me just get this in here. And then the B-mount adapter will sit straight on top. So this power accessory adapter doesn't require a battery on the back to work. Even if you're just powering the camera through the power input on the side, it will still give power to the PDM, and then your accessories will stay powered. There are 4 24-volt outputs, which are on 3-pin RS connectors that have been around for a long time, and you can run 100 watts of accessories, or power 100 watts, on those 4 connectors. The 2 at the bottom are 2-pin LEMO connectors, giving you 50 watts of 12 volts, which is shared also with, while I flip this upside down, this D-tap connector. So this is a twisty tap connector, or twist D-tap, and that means that you can put the D-tap connector in both ways, which is really handy. And there's also a recessed center pin, which means that if you have had problems in the past with SDI outputs, that's less of a problem now because the negative pin will touch last because it is recessed, which is a nice little safety feature. So now we can put the B-mount adapter plate itself directly into the PDM, power distribution module, 4 screws. Now there is also another module, which is the AEM, that's the audio extension module that gives you 2 channels of microphone preamp, and you can use that instead of the PDM, but you can't use both modules together. All right, that's the back of the camera. Side brackets. Now the first side bracket is this. This is the CSB1L. So this is the camera side bracket left for the left side of the camera. The side brackets are pretty much the same, except they are mirrored, one for each side of the camera, which means they're out of the way of the user buttons, and they also offer a little protection for the front of the camera, which I quite like. Again, 4 screws. Now, when you pick up the side brackets, you might notice that they are a bit heavier than they look. The side brackets are actually made from steel, which kind of sounds crazy, but the reason we've done that is that we know so many camera assistants now will run rods off the side brackets to mount lens motors. So these side brackets were designed so that you have the stiffest possible mounting interface for a rod, which means that by the time you have a decently sized rod, out the side of the camera and then a lens motor on it, it's less likely to move up and down, and so is less likely to require a recalibration. On the side brackets, there is a rosette for hand grip mounting or mounting hand grip extensions, and then of course, again, M4 holes, 3/8 inch holes, and 1/4 inch holes. On the right side, we have almost the same bracket, but with an extension as well. So you can separate these two parts if you'd like to just run the CSB1R without the extension. And you can do that with a T8 Torx driver. There is 1 screw at the top and 1 screw in the bottom, and then the 2 parts slide apart. So I'm going to leave it on for now because it gives us a lot of accessory mounting options on the side of the camera. And we can screw those in again with the standard 4 screw holes. So this is kind of a nice place to mount an L-cube if you need one, or you might want to have a video transmitter here, or some, it's particularly close to the timecode connector as well, or the audio input, so there's all sorts of, transmitter and receiver things you might want to mount here. Again, 4 screws. Oh, I've done this up a little tightly. So make sure you kind of do all the screws evenly and then go around and tighten them up to confirm. Okay. The third side bracket that comes with the production set is the AMP1. So this is the this is the articulated mounting plate because it is articulated. Now there are a number of positions that you can mount this in. There's a little thumb screw here, and this kind of speaks to the philosophy behind these accessories. You'll notice that anything that kind of clings to the camera body really closely and isn't designed to be taken off on set that often will be screwed really nicely to the camera body, often front and back screws, and they're kind of really solid. Anything that you would mount on top of those accessories has a thumb screw or can be adjusted without tools so that it's quicker to do on set. You don't need to go fishing for your little 3mm driver. However, if you would like to, there are 2 ways to tighten this. Let's see if I can get this for the camera. Now, this is a hex screw, so you can adjust down here with a 3, a 4, or a 5mm hex, so that's the ARRI multi-hex screw, which is kind of nice, or a 5/32. So 4 possible hex keys or Allen keys you can use to tighten this. Or you can throw the little Allen key through here and then use that as a lever to tighten the screw should you wish. Not necessary though, just an option for safety. Now this plate is kind of nice because previously on other cameras you probably couldn't mount accessories here because you would be blocking access to the ports. So the accessory mounting plate can both slide up and down and swing out. We have like a little ratcheting rosette here. It's not actually ratcheting, it's just a rosette that we can use to lock this into place. And I could choose to mount it off the top handle or a couple of other places around the cage here, which is cool. So personally, I would run my video transmitter here with a really nice short power cable to either the PDM or the accessory power outputs on the camera, and a short BNC. And if you need to make any adjustments, it's like a half turn or less to open this up, and then you can swing the whole transmitter out of the way, fix whatever you're doing, and then put it back. Which is quite nice. I guess because this camera is so much smaller than previous production cameras, our designers have had to be really smart about offering options like this. The last thing to do is to place our rod mounting bracket. So there are obviously many places that you can place this. So this is the RMB7, which is new. We had the RMB3 previously. They're very similar, but the RMB7 was designed to be a little more low profile and a smaller bracket so that you can more easily mount this inside a Trinity ring, because that's quite, usually the center of gravity of the camera is up the front here, so it would be right where you want the rod clamp. So the RMB7 makes that a bit easier. Now you'll also notice that there is a little scallop in the back. I'll see if we can get this one. So in here, there is a little cutout so that you can still unscrew the side bracket while the RMB7 is attached. And it's those kind of small details that I think are really cool and show that the people designing this stuff really care and understand about on-set workflows, because it would be annoying having to do both things. The other nice thing with the side brackets is that you've noticed they attach directly to the camera body. And that is new, and that was something that the designers of the accessories requested of the designers of the camera body, so that you didn't have to undo the side brackets if you wanted to remove a top plate, which you do currently with our accessories for Alexa Mini and Mini LF. So it's nice that those teams worked really well together for this project. Last but not least, we have the CBP. So this is a CBP-5, which would give you Studio 19mm rail support as well as lightweight 15mm rail support. If you've ordered the production set with Studio 15mm rods, then you would have a CBP-6, which has those offset 15mm studio rails at the bottom and 15mm lightweight still at the top. This will slide into the BUD1 either from the front or from the back. I'm just going to drop it in here. Now, make sure that that lever here is all the way back when you are sliding the part in so that it doesn't grab, and then push forward to lock. Now you have a huge range of balance potential here, because there's so much range this will slide, which is great if you have a big and heavy camera setup. You might want to make sure that the shoulder pad's all the way forward and vice versa at the back on a light one. So that's really handy. And of course you can slide it straight off if you wanted to go into one of our SAM plates, for instance, something like this. So this is the SAM6, which would be the stabilizer adapter mount for our CSS product range. So Trinity 2, Artemis 2, SRH 3 and 360 would use this plate. You can whip out the CBP-5, slide in the SAM plate, and then go straight onto one of those systems. And we have 5 SAM plates in total for other kind of rigs, Movies and Ronins, the Steadicams, GPI Pro rigs. We're offering those so that you can have a really quick change to other accessories. Now, the CBP-5 here is the 3rd generation CBP, so it has a number of key improvements. If you're familiar with the CBP from the Mini, well, you'll notice immediately that this is a lot wider here. So this dovetail section that slides under the camera is, 2.5 times as wide probably, which means that side to side, there is a lot more stability than in that system. It also has 15mm lightweight rods, which the CBPs for the Amira did, but the Mini did not. So that I think is a lovely improvement. Now this is a compact bridge plate because it's compact in the sense that it also contains a shoulder pad. So these are one part, and the shoulder pad is then very close to the bottom of the camera, which means that the center of gravity when it's on your shoulder is nice and low. It's also got this really comfortable visco shoulder pad here, which you'll notice is quite squishy and an improvement on the 1st generation of that shoulder pad. The mechanism in the CBP, and really the party trick of the system, is that you no longer have to bring in the bridge plate onto the back or the end of the dovetail and slide it along. You can drop it straight on and off. So the forward position here of this silver lever, that is lock. The middle position, you'll feel it hit a safety stop here. I can't go past the middle. That is the balance position where the clamp is open, but it's still at a safety stage and it won't fall off. And then I have to pull out this little black tab that's behind the lever in order to go to the release position. And when I'm in the release position, I can then drop the whole system straight onto a dovetail. And then release, it will spring back to the balance safety position, so it can't come off, but I can now quite easily slide the camera back and forth along a dovetail. It slides better than previous CBPs because we have this little extra bit here, which makes the plate longer, and you can see it sits on top of the rails of the dovetail plate. So previously you might have noticed that cameras would tend to kind of sit back when they were unlocked, but now we can more easily slide along. At the front to lock, in the middle to unlock, and then pull the lever out to come up. So it's important that you remember, if you're holding the camera like this, it's important to remember that you still have to pull the tab out and pull the lever back before you then go to put it on the dovetail plate, because otherwise you will just end up digging up the dovetail plate because the clamp is in the safety position. All right, that's about it for building the accessories. Remember that we have all those SAM plates available, and we also have a whole nother accessory range called the lightweight camera set, which is also available for the Alexa 35. And if you like those parts, you can also, of course, buy them individually, and many of them will work directly with this kit, or you can purchase an expansion set. So the lightweight expansion set for Alexa 35 will give you all of the parts in the lightweight set that you didn't get with your production set. I hope that was enjoyable and beneficial. Please send us as many photos of your production set as possible. We love to hear from our customers. You can reach us on Instagram and most other social media networks at ARRI. My name's Sean. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.